Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the
law. As such, Alternative Digitalk brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
as he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here, Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Good morning to you all, our viewers. Welcome to the Interface Show. This is the show where we host Dr. Kizza Besigye as he takes us through different alternatives on how our government should be run and views on how best the rule of law can be highlighted in the country, how best the economy can be run, and how best human rights can be upheld in this country. You are welcome. I am your host, Nixon Segawa. I want to apologize for the delays in the start. We have been having some technical issues, but we thank God that we have overcome and we are now live. Wherever you are, you can watch us live. I want to request you a favor from our end, that you share that link and invite someone so that they can join also in today's show. They can join and participate. You can also send in your comments, and at a later time we shall also be opening up our phone calls so that you'll call in and also participate in today's show. As we promised and as it has always been, we are with Dr. Kizza Besigye. Despite all his busy schedules, he has always spared time to come and be with us and interface with you Ugandans wherever you are. At this moment, I want to welcome Doctor to say hi and welcome our viewers to today's show. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Nixon, and always a great pleasure to be here on Saturday. A very good morning to all of you who have joined us in this program, wherever you are joining us from. It's been a rather rainy period, and mornings are a bit chilly, but today we have a bright day, and so a very good morning. And I also hope you had a good week. I always tell my friends that for me, rather than celebrate a Happy New Year, I celebrate Happy New Day every day, because living and surviving in this country is worth celebrating every day. It's not an easy thing. And so, yeah, this week, quite obviously, you have heard that a patriarch of our struggle, you know, the indomitable fighter, Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere, departed. And that has been a very, very big, you know, blow to all of us who have been in this struggle for change in the country. And therefore, has brought a very dark cloud to the end of this week. But otherwise, those are God's plans. And so I sympathize not just with the family of our, senior fighter, but also with all of you who are passing through such similar difficulties, who have lost dear ones, who have people in hospitals who are unwell, people who are going through all challenges of different types. My sympathies to all of you. And indeed, in spite of all these challenges, there are those who are celebrating various things.
That's true.
In fact, even I have a family member who is going to be having a wedding this afternoon. So all these problems and good events, we celebrate them as they come. So I wish you a good program, good viewing, and welcome to this Interface program.
Okay, Doctor, we thank you so much. Welcome back from Kenya. We have been following you, and we've been following a lot of events that have been unfolding in our neighborhood. And you are indeed welcome from that conference. A lot has been happening and a lot has gone on throughout the country. This week we are still grappling and struggling with Ebola, and as well the country is also still struggling with funding. You all know we are a borrowing nation, so those are the usual loans, the usual borrowing here and there. In this very week, we are going to be talking about the continuous attacks on police. Now it has extended to the UPDF. We don't know how it will end, but more importantly, we are going to be looking at this tactical arrangement, as the police spokesperson explained, the tactical arrangement of withdrawing the police posts, and where does that leave the security of the wananchi in the country. We shall also be looking at the fruits of the Human Rights Accountability Conference, where Doctor and the colleagues in the opposition were in Kenya. And we shall also be looking at, of course, paying tribute to our comrade, the late Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere. And at that very point, that's where I want Doctor to begin. There is a lot, and the late has really contributed to this country. I want to give this time to Doctor to really pay tribute and speak to the late. Doctor, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. And, if one had to speak about Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere, it would take quite a long time and you wouldn't finish, the story of his life and accomplishments. Because I think God was gracious to him and to our country to have given him a reasonably long life. In February, he was celebrating the landmark of 90 years. Not very many people in our country live to become 90.
That's true.
And they have been 90 full years. It's not like some people, spend years here, but when they are really not active or effective.
Okay.
But he was active and effective until the last day. So he has a lot that he has done and that we can and ought to talk about his life. And many people have made, befitting testimonies about his life. And it's not a passing where you find that there is a controversy, that there are some people celebrating, the others.
Of course, we've been seeing several passings of
Yes,
recently,
yes,
dancing.
where you see, this is so far, unanimous outflow of sympathy, outflow of, emotions about, his positive work, his contribution, his statesmanship, his, humble approach to all situations, his steadfastness, not wavering, all the attributes that have been and continue to be made are genuine and similar. You don't find people expressing reservations and so that talks, I think, a lot to someone indeed who has lived for that long, that he has lived not just a long life, but an impactful life and a positive impact on people who have been closely associated with him in the family, in the traditional circles of his clan, in the church where he has been living, and there were very wonderful testimonies again by the church, Rubaga Church, which is his church, the cathedral. He was there on Sunday for service. He went to church and had celebrated mass at his church, and so his impact right from the area where he is born, where he's grown, where he's lived, is all a great example of how a useful citizen would spend their lives. And so, yes, we are certainly sad that he's going, especially at a time that is critical for the country, when he was trying to do still a lot of very useful things for us. But on the other hand, we have every reason to celebrate a life well lived. And when I speak from not just knowledge of somebody from a distance, but of somebody that I have interacted fairly closely with for quite some time. I was telling Monas last night that I first met Dr. Ssemogerere in a rather awkward situation during the war to take over Kampala. We had a tactical headquarters at Nabingo Secondary School, Nabingo Girls School, and Museveni sent somebody to call and to bring Dr. Ssemogerere to find us there.
The DP man.
Yes, and he came and found us at Nabingo, and that was, so the battle for takeover of Kampala was ongoing. By that time, Lubiri had already been overrun, and Makindye barracks had also already been overrun, and the fighting was right into the city, Kololo, and other areas. And you know, and that's when I first saw, you know, this, in spite of the, you know, what was quite clearly a very frightening time for somebody living in the, for people living in the city. And especially those who were serving in the government that was being that was being overrun.
Yes.
You know, he you know, came in a very composed, calm, and you know, you could see a person that was had confidence of not being shrouded in anything that would put him at risk of being considered an enemy of anybody. You know? So he had that aura of confidence and calmness, and so that was my first experience of interacting with him. That was on the 25th of January in 1986. And then, of course, Kampala fell. And no, in fact, I think the meeting was on 24th. Kampala actually fell on 25th completely, was completely taken over on 25th. And we came into Kampala on 25th. Although the formal date that is, you know, celebrated is 26th, because that's when also the swearing in of a new president took place on the morning of 26th. And yeah, and then in the new government that was formed, you know, again, by coincidence.
So was that meeting offering him an olive branch? That?
Well, the meeting I actually didn't attend, but it was obviously to discuss with him the participation of DP in the government that was going to be formed. And as you may recall, indeed, the first government was actually predominantly manned by DP leaders. So in that new government, Dr. Ssemogerere was appointed as the Minister for Internal Affairs, and I was appointed as the Minister of State for Internal Affairs.
So you totally worked hand in hand.
So, and he had been actually at the ministry even in the previous administration, so he was familiar with the ministry by then. And me, I had never worked in government, you know. By the time I went to the bush, I was a young doctor and working in Nairobi in Kenya. And so government was completely new to me.
So you had a lot to learn from him.
Absolutely. Government was completely new to me. Even public service generally, you know. We were young at that time. I wasn't even 30 years old. And so I, looking back, consider that really this was the grace of God to have found myself in the company and leadership of a person of the caliber and you know, character.
How was his mode of leadership, more so when he was in government? serving as a minister?
Yeah, very, very consultative, and took a lot of care to, he would not, he would not rush actions. He would want to study. And that was not just in government, that was his entire nature.
Okay.
He was somebody who was deliberate in whatever he did and took time to understand it from the different angles, to study, and make considered decision, and which was very necessary at the time, because, as I have said, this was a fluid moment of restructuring, rebuilding, positioning government, creating new policies, and so a steady and deliberate hand like that was very, 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 very important. To deal with the sensitivity, the complexity of the matters that were at hand during that transition, the transition period. And I must say, that those 2 years, we worked together for 2 years, from 1986 to 1988, and I think they were very foundational in how I then grew into, public service and leadership. I completely believe that, a lot of things and how I view and consider matters is significantly influenced by that experience. Now, of course, then we parted. He went on to become Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, where he served for quite a long time, and finally, I think he was in public service, still Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Public Service, before getting out of government. I actually got out of government much earlier than him, because then after internal affairs, I was switched to the president's office and to head the secretariat of NRM as the National Political Commissar. Which role I believe was to put me into controversy eventually with the NRM leader, Mr. Museveni. And in 1990, I was thrown out of government. Yeah.
So in 1990, you left government.
Yes.
When did he leave the net?
I think in 1996, when he was going to contest.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he left in 1996 or 95. I think it was 96.
How was he able to handle being still a DP man, a leader in DP, and then?
Well, so it shouldn't have been difficult. You see, the whole idea, indeed why he was, that Nabingo meeting was taking place, was that this was a transitional government.
Okay.
It was, and the idea was that the transition should be managed by a government of national unity.
Okay.
And so all parties, all political actors, the idea was that they should work together to restructure the country and prepare it for a fresh start. And the restructuring of the country specifically, essentially, included having a new constitutional order. So making a new democratic constitution. Two, to then get the institutions that are created by the constitution to be implemented, to be built, so that they then run the new system. But also critical for the transition, even at that time it was envisaged that we should have some kind of a truth-telling period to know what exactly happened in the past, you know, the huge human rights abuses that had taken place, to make sense of them. Who was killing Ugandans? And how do we deal with that so that people can have closure? You know, like there were, of course, very many people that had been killed during 1972-73 period. There was still, of course, the problems of the 1966, which lingered in a dark way over the country. And so the idea was that we should have a finality of managing those previous problems, reconcile the country, and we begin a new
System.
a new page as a country. That is the end of the transition. So DP and its leader, Dr. Paul Ssemogerere, were right to be part of that transition. And even now, you see, so the transition, the problem is that the transition never happened. There was a fraud, and that's why we quarreled. That's how I got into problems, because I could see that this was fraudulent. The transition was not actually on course.
So we are still in transition.
And it didn't happen, you know. So, and that's how NRM ended up becoming a permanent feature, which was supposed to be a transitional arrangement. Now they said it's a system of government. The movement is a system of government, and so up to the time that transition would end, it was perfectly in order for the DP leaders and other leaders, UPC and others, to be part of that government. The only lapse, which I think was rather unfortunate, is that the terms of managing that transition were not, you know, made extremely clear and framed into an agreement that the country was seized with, so that everybody in the country knew that this transition, this is what is going to happen at this point, at this point, at this point, this is how it is going to end. So it was like a gentleman's agreement, and that's where I think the lapse came. Yeah, but I think they were right to participate, and their participation, I think, was helpful, although, as I have said, without that agreement, it made it easy for the fraudsters. The fraudster was Mr. Museveni, then, you know, diverting from that agreement and taking the country into the dangerous direction that we are still grappling with.
Would that be the same reason as to why the late also chose finally to leave after seeing that?
Oh yes, so of course. Well, first of all, as I have said, the transition.
Didn't happen.
No, but the transitional period. So the period ended because it was originally 4 years.
Yes.
It was extended by another 5 years, but eventually it came to an end. And so after the transition, as anticipated, there would have to be an election.
True.
And so he
Offered it.
rightly, at that stage, offered himself to contest as DP, as a leader of his party. But as I have said, by that time, unfortunately, the hijack of the transition mechanism had already been carried out. And so the contest was now going to be a contest under NRM. And that is what we are still grappling with. But like I have said, Dr. Ssemogerere was a very calm person, very structured in whatever he did. He did not consider that. Some of us, I think, rightly, thought to be, radical and and we want things to happen quickly and so on. He was more measured, even when he didn't agree with things. He took his time to pursue the different options and so on, and that has been his approach up to the end, frankly. So his participation in the election then was also very helpful, because it was able now, still at a fairly early stage, to expose what this had become, the intolerance of others, the militarism, because that was the very first opportunity.
Yes.
After all those 10 years, it was the very first opportunity to test Museveni and his movement. And so if he hadn't stood and mobilized the way he did, I think that exposure would have been missed, and maybe the people that then became awakened and started viewing this as a problematic arrangement would not have done so the time they did. Yeah. So in all, it's Dr. Ssemogerere really leaves an impeccable kind of record. There are not many political actors who would have held the positions he did, first of all in the party and later in government. And you don't hear anywhere that he was involved with this corruption.
Corruption.
He has, I think, as clean a record in terms of integrity in the party, in the office, in the government, as you can have. You know, if you go to any, even now, go to any of these offices, you'll find where the minister is, the person making the tea is the niece, the brother is the one leading the security, the other one is, you know, and the things that are going on in the offices are terrible things. That was not to be found with Dr. Ssemogerere. His integrity is impeccable.
Okay.
And that's why we are in trouble, because there are extremely few people of that type who will not be, whom you will not fear that, you know, in the night they will bring something to, to his house, and in the morning he's speaking in a Rhodesia. He could be relied on.
Okay.
That if he makes an error of judgment, it is his error of judgment, not because he has been influenced or compromised by undue influences. No.
So, Doctor, the late has been viewed as an elder who has been in the struggle, perhaps to unite also the fighting forces, the opposition forces. Where does that leave this move?
Yes, that has been his preoccupation, actually, in these last years. He started on this role really shortly after the elections of 2021. We encouraged him because indeed we viewed his unique qualities and status in politics and in life as somebody who could be a uniting factor. And so when Ssaabasajja Kabaka awarded him the honor of, you know, the Medal of Excellence in public service and political leadership. When he was celebrating the award, we all encouraged him because, again, at his celebration, we all found ourselves there. It united us.
Yes.
It brought us together to celebrate, and we could all find it, you know, easier and right to celebrate him, all of us. And so finding that there was that affinity
in the same room.
Yes, that he had created that affinity of all the forces around him. We encouraged him during that celebration that why don't you, as a part of the legacy of this award, continue uniting us in our diversity.
Okay.
And we use that unity to focus on the challenging situation that our country now faces. And of course, he was extremely welcoming of that role and started right away playing it. And we created actually a platform of unity in diversity, UID. And we held several meetings at Africana. And that was actually shortly before the election, not after. It was before the election. So that unity actually was, we thought, could even work during the elections, but also subsequently. And of course, it was very difficult for people to unite when they are going to be rivaling in the elections.
Okay.
But having gone through the elections and the way it happened and all the violence that took place and so on, he then invited us again and rekindled that process. And then we got a setback because he developed a health problem and was operated on and stayed a bit of time out of being active. But as soon as he regained his full health, he was at it again.
Okay.
And in fact, on the very day he passed on, which was on Friday, which was yesterday morning,
Yes.
he had scheduled a meeting for yesterday. So he was due to chair a meeting yesterday of the different people, yes, to advance that. So that you can see he worked up to the last day, actually.
Will his dream ever come true to see a united opposition?
Yes, I believe so. And even at the time he left, there is already something.
Okay.
You know, that's why we are talking about all of us being in Nairobi together on one occasion and working together. So it has already taken some kind of a form.
Okay.
And this is also because it's inevitable if we have to solve the problem that the country faces today of capture, of very entrenched capture of the state by a family using force.
It's inevitable.
We have to unite if we have to overcome this adversity. And his role was to facilitate it.
Okay.
The need, the imperative for unity is unquestionable. The question now is who will help us to continue nursing
that.
and guiding that process. Yeah, but the process is on. It is driven primarily by the demand that the country has to get out of this captivity that we are in. And so, hopefully, his passing will challenge those of his type who are not playing as an effective role as he was, to step forward.
Okay.
And, we will welcome all people that can provide that essential leadership of uniting all our forces and guiding them towards a liberation of the country first, but secondly, and even more importantly, of managing a transition. Because that transition that never happened must happen.
It must happen.
Will have to happen. Sooner or later, we must have a consensus as a country on how the country should be run. We need a new consensus. The consensus that we were supposed to have around the 1995 Constitution was, again, for selfish reasons, manipulated and distorted and eventually destroyed. So we need a new consensus of how to live together, how to manage the country, how to share power, the power of the people of Uganda in the different parts of Uganda and so on. These conversations must be had, and that we have a constitution that we all believe in. We must rebuild the state institutions, the institutions that are now institutions of Museveni. You know, that you have a judiciary which is no longer fit at all to be called a judiciary. You now have a situation, I don't know whether the country sees this, that you have a situation where the judiciary has been taken to court by a member of the Supreme Court. The judiciary itself is on trial. And rightly, because the case of Justice Kisache is a case that the whole country should take interest in. It's a precedent that everybody who cares for the country should focus on. Because the issues she raises, I have read, are very pertinent issues. And I would be interested to see how they can be, dismissed by any court. And especially when they are coming from a very clear legal mind that has framed them and placed them before them. So all this is an outcome of institutions that are in crisis because they are hostage, because they are captured. We have a captured judiciary, we have a captured parliament. This country can function far better without this parliament, without any parliament. So we will have to build these institutions, that you have a police force which is professional, effective, run, and so on and so forth, the military and so on. So the country will not escape having a transition that is managed to deliver a good government at the end. And so the departure of Dr. Ssemogerere should challenge all right-thinking senior people in this country. To the gap, they should be challenged to the gap that he leaves, that his departure creates, what the critical role he was trying to do and how it can be done. And so, after laying to rest Dr. Ssemogerere, I hope that, all our heads will focus on how to, to fill that gap and to move very quickly forward so that this country can be saved.
Doctor, some people are beginning to fear that now that the late has gone, we may not see DP again, since he was seen as a person that would now unite the party. Whatever is happening in the party, members are now totally divided. Where does that leave this matter?
You see, DP is not just the name. DP, what constitutes any party, not just DP, are the principles, the beliefs of its adherents, the people who adhere to certain beliefs. It's like the church. You cannot kill a church or a mosque, or you can't, because it's not a building, it's not a name, it's the faith. It's in the hearts of people. So there is no way you can kill the hearts of people. Okay. So the DP, when Amin took over, he banned all political parties and political activities and was in government for 8 years. There was no parliament, there was no election, So why didn't DP die? As soon as the chance for the believers of DP was open, DP was all over the place. You can see in Soviet Union, when there was the Soviet Union, the churches and the faith organizations in the Soviet Union were totally suppressed. There was, no freedom of worship. And this took, about 60 years. But as soon as that period ended and there was freedom again, all these adherents of these beliefs came back. So beliefs cannot be killed. And that's why DP cannot be killed. The adherents will remain there, whether the party is visible or not. Or even whether the party, like now, when it is its leader takes it where the adherents don't want to be, he will be there with his name, but the adherents won't be there. So I don't believe that DP members are part of NRM government. They are not. No, because the NRM government represents exactly what the DP believers oppose. What they don't believe in, what they would like to see go. So there is no way they can be in government with Mao. No. Mao is there with his green shirt. And if he likes, he can also put a DP flag on his on the vehicle they have given him. He can put the government flag there, the DP flag, but DP will not be in the car.
Maybe, Doctor, you can also take this. How different is Mao's joining and of government and that of Ssemogerere?
Yeah, but you see, this is what I told you, that the joining of Ssemogerere was joining a government of national unity to manage a transition, for specific work of a transition.
So Mao claims pushing for a transition.
Now, this is the whole thing. Mao joined a moving vehicle of NRM. With its whole ideology, with its, they say they have, I don't know, they say they are run on 4 things, I don't know, Pan-Africa, whatever, he's not going there to negotiate that. No. Okay. He's just joined a running vehicle. And when he, of course, was confronted, he said, we are going to talk about transition. Museveni said, who told you about that? So this is not about transition.
Okay.
And if it was to be about transition, then the work of the transition should have been their subject of discussion. He would be, like I said, the lapse in the 1986 of not negotiating a transition deal that is then presented to the country. So Norbert Mao, if he was of that, his intention was that, he should have negotiated the transition deal and presented it to the country. And the transition deal should have then described when the transition begins, and that's the transition that he would join to manage a transition. Not to become a part of NRM government, and then you say, while in the government, I'm going to talk, we are going to have a conversation about transition. That's absolute nonsense. So these are miles apart.
Okay.
DP in 1986 joined a transitional government to together make a constitution, to together reorganize state institutions, and prepare the country for a free and fair election. That was, there was a program for transition. The mistake then there was that this was not
Clearly defined.
Yes, structured into a proper agreement and presented to the country so that the country holds them accountable to that program. That is exactly what Mao doesn't have at all. For him, he joined now.
He claims he has an agreement.
NRM is not a transitional government. NRM is, as you hear them very much, stamping their chest. They say they were elected on their manifesto. They are running the country on their manifesto, on their ideology, and so on. That is exactly what he joined. He did not join a transition anything. He joined the NRM government to run its manifesto. And whether he, while in the bedroom, will discuss other things, that is a matter for him, whether they materialize or not materialize. But his joining had nothing to do with the transition.
All right, all right. As Doctor said, we cannot talk about the late Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere and finish. We are going to stop at that. We are going to go for a break, and when we return, we are going to be looking at the security question in the country, the rampant attacks on police and security installations, and we shall also look at the human rights issue, the human rights status in the country. Thank you. We've already received your comments, and when we return, we are going to be reading out some of your comments, and we shall also be opening up the lines so that you can participate. We are just breaking for a few seconds. Please remain with us.
Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digitalk brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV, Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
serve Uganda. As promised, we deliver. We are redefining the social media narrative, asking tough questions and holding your leaders accountable. We are non-partisan and break down having a conversation with Uganda.
We are the Mighty Drive. We hold debates that give you viable solutions. We bring to you people that Ivora is wanting to listen to. We are gender sensitive and give space to the unheard voices. Not forgetting the quote of the day.
We are live on our social media platforms, The Alternative Uganda on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter from Monday to Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Don't miss the debate behind the wheels and our studios.
I am Edgar Matthew Karuhanga.
Farida Vikobiri.
And Princess Luwe Delidian.
Expect in-depth analysis, credible, factual and authentic information. We are the Alternative Digitalk.
Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that short break. I am still Nixon Segawa, the host of this wonderful show, The Interface. We are still with Dr. Kizza Besigye, and he was still taking us on as we are paying tribute to the late Paul Kawanga Ssemwogerere. Doctor, before we dive into the other issue, there is a question from Asimwe Ismail. He says, thanks for the show, Raisi Dr. Kizza Besigye. He says, my question is, where is the consciousness of well-meaning Ugandans in this struggle? We are losing people like Ssemogerere, and we are largely left with NRM or 7 sycophants who don't care about the future of the country, but only care about their daily bread. He's asking about the consciousness of the well-meaning Ugandans. Do we still have more, and are they really there?
They are, you know, as I pointed out earlier, very, very few.
Very few.
Unfortunately. And that's what makes a loss of Dr. Ssemwogerere. Even the fact that we were still, you know, running around him at 90.
Yes.
Is in itself telling, because he should have been enjoying his retirement. You know, some other people should have been available to do what he was doing. But the fact that they were not there is what, actually we should maybe also consider that we are partly responsible for what for what happened, putting, you know, a lot of pressure and burden
On an old man.
on a person of 90 years is not fair. But we had nowhere else to so just the fact that he was still active up to the very day of his death,
The very definition.
taking in all these challenging situations is in itself a commentary on the lack of the type of leader that he was. And so, you called him Ismail?
Yes, Ismail Asimwe.
Ismail is very right to say that the conscience of the country should be interrogated, where our conscience is.
Okay. Thank you, our viewers, wherever you are. We ask you that you keep sending in your comments. We shall be reading them out, and these comments shall be and we will be responding to them. Doctor, I want us now to dive into this other issue, seeing what the spokesperson of the police calls the tactical arrangement within the police. We are seeing a number of police posts that are being withdrawn, and that speaks to the attacks that have been happening to police posts and police centers, and what they target are guns. Where is that leaving our country? Should people worry more? And how do you view that entire arrangement? Is it safer? Is it the best thing that could be done at such a time?
South Uganda. As promised, we deliver. We are redefining the social media narrative, asking tough questions and holding your leaders accountable. We are non-partisan and break down having a conversation with Uganda.
We are the mighty drive. We hold it.
All right. Our viewers, we are sorry for that. We are indeed very sorry for that, but we are putting everything right so that the show flows very well. Doctor, we want you to wrap up.
Yes. And indeed, I'm sorry about the technical challenges that we are experiencing this morning. I understand that my voice was not getting out as it should. I was only saying that, with the passing of Dr. Ssemogerere, the adherents, the believers in DP, yes, who are quite troubled, not just by the events of very recent, when the leader of the party took it in a direction that is extremely controversial. But even before that, there has been a lot of, I think, lack of, people's sense of having a home that was serving their purpose as home. And it's not just DP. This will happen in all parties. The destabilization, what is destabilizing the homes of our beliefs is the same. It's like what I have told you, that in the Soviet Union, all faiths were suppressed. And they could not reorganize and propagate their faiths until that suppression had been overcome. That is the situation in which we are as a country. All the believers of parties, their homes are going to be under attack. So we have no homes to talk of. The homes are being bombarded, whether it is FDC, whether it's NUP, whether it is CP, whether it is JEMA, whether it is UPC. The homes are under constant bombardment by the same, trouble causer. The one who captured the state does not want us to continue there propagating these views against the capture. And so it's vital, it's extremely vital that we all first focus on removing the impediment to our enjoyment of our homes. In other words, if it means vacating the homes and looking for a ground where we all congregate, we should do so very quickly. And then fight whoever is chasing us from our homes, remove that problem, then we can go back to our homes and reorganize them and rebuild the roofs that were destroyed by the bombs and and reorganize the country. That's where we must focus. So the adherents of DP really need to quickly link up with all the other people whose homes are also under attack, and we liberate the country first. Now, going back to your question of the security situation, what appears to be a hunt for guns. We actually talked a bit about this in our previous shows, that it should not come as a surprise at all. I have very, very clearly said that the crisis in the country, the crisis of failure to thrive, when people cannot survive, when people cannot have the basics, you can't eat, because food is a basic. So if there is no security of food, you can't talk about security of a country. You see, people talk about security as if it's just related to guns. No. The most critical security is security to eat, is security to have a home, a shelter. That is what is fundamentally critical for security. As long as you have people that can't eat, you have people that have nowhere to sleep, you have people that cannot access health care, no health security, then you have no security in the country. Period. You will not, I laugh when I hear, Museveni telling investors, Uganda is peaceful, you come. Anybody who is sensible will know that you are telling lies. When you have millions upon millions that have no food, that have nowhere to sleep, that have no health care, it means that country is potentially explosive. And that's why you see, now in town, you can't even go talking on the phone. That's true. You are talking on the phone. The other day, I met somebody who was speaking on the phone, and the boda came riding by and it grabbed the phone from his ear. No, it was not. It was here.
Yeah, it was our friend.
It was with Arnold.
Yes, Arnold.
Whose phone was grabbed from his ear when he was talking. You know, so you cannot say that is a peaceful country. You know, where everybody is desperate. And so, how does this now translate into violence?
Okay.
The absence of food security, the absence of shelter security, the absence of health security, the absence even of things like, education for children. How does this translate into violence? Two ways. First, the most obvious and direct one is that those who are desperate, who are against the war, will take desperate measures to deal with their situation. Some of which are those which translate into, they don't care whether there is a camera looking at me, whether there is a policeman there. If I see something that I can translate into food, I will grab it. You see? So, violence, this directly spurs people into violent action to secure themselves. Because nobody is securing them. The situation does not secure them. They have nothing to lose. Even if you arrest me and take me to prison, I have nothing to lose. I'm in fact better off there. I will have food there maybe.
On the daily.
Maybe I will have where to sleep. And so I have nothing to lose. Once you have such a situation, those people will now turn violent. And because when they get violent, you come to attack them, they can also start organized violence. And that's how, in what they call inner cities, people start creating gangs. So they form now groups and organize they create leadership structures and commanders and their violence is now organized. And so it escalates. Now, once they are organized and they now want tools to use. And so they can actually go and attack those with guns to get guns to use. But also in the same direction, some can become actually more purposeful in terms of wanting to change the structure of the state. Some can start to fight the government, apart from just fighting
to grab
for themselves. They can start to fight the government that they see as a problem to their survival. And that's how insurgent action begins. So, in the situation where we are, all that must be expected. It would be shocking if they were not there. Because you have, these millions of desperate people. And on the other hand, those who made them desperate are living in a completely different world, engaged in partying, engaged in, all kinds of lavish, opulent life. You put on TV at night and, if you are there on Friday, Saturday, immediately after the news, they start the the partying and somebody, you know, has no food. So the two words that are shown themselves incite, you know, incite that kind of violence. To see people with so much and, you know, opulently enjoying themselves while others have nothing. So this is not surprising at all.
Okay.
And it should be expected. It will definitely grow and become worse. But on the other hand, I have pointed out also that once those who have created this situation wake up to the danger that now surrounds them, they themselves can start the violence. They themselves, rather than wait for these people to organize and attack them, they themselves can start the violence to create the impression that there is insurgency. And to use that impression they themselves have created to now crash and terrorize the population so that they don't organize. In other words, preemptive action.
Okay.
And it has been done. So the current government is completely capable of doing that.
To the extent of having the officers killed.
Yes, it's capable. Because you see, once you get out of the whole philosophy of the rule of law, which nobody can contest that it is no longer there in this country. That's why, you know, you see people grabbing citizens on the streets, beating them and putting them in those drones. On camera, they don't care. There is impunity, you know. Clearly, no rule of law. You take them into ungazetted places where you detain them, beat, torture them there, kill them, throw dead bodies or throw live ones back to where you want to throw them. If some take to courts after months and so on. With that kind of impunity, there is nothing they cannot do. You know, if you are killing people when you have been arrested and seen that you are the ones who arrested them, they disappear completely. They are killed. There is nothing. People of that mindset, there is nothing that stops them organizing what I have said. And we have seen indeed that mode of operation is what happened in Kasese after 2016. Because again, in Kasese, there was very clear anti-government, yes, I can say anti-regime sentiment in the election. People voted defiantly, massively against the regime, like they have done here in Uganda now. And what followed? We started hearing that there are people who are insurgents in Kasese. And in no time,
the kingdom is bombed down.
The kingdom was bombed. They said they have guns inside. There was no gun. There was nothing. They arrested, they killed hundreds, they arrested hundreds. Nobody has been tried up to now. 6 years. Nobody has been tried. But people are in mass graves and so on. And the idea, I believe, was to cause a chilling effect amongst the Bakonzo, so that they do not use their unhappiness to organize indeed. It is preemptive. So that too could be happening here, considering what happened in the last election here, considering the fear they may have over what happened in 2009, when people, protested massively here. So I think there is a distinct possibility that there could be an attempt to to create what looks like insurgent actions on the basis of which to spring and cause massive repressive action that then cheers everybody and disorganizes people, but under that cover.
Okay. Doctor, if at all we go with the first if, where we talked of violence, organized violence that is perhaps cropping up, would this tactical arrangement of withdrawing police posts, would it be the right response at such a point?
You see, the right response to achieve what objective is the whole thing. You may think that the objective
is to save the police officer. Let's bring them at sub-county so that they are gathered there, and instead of them being isolated in one place where they can easily be attacked. And
you see again, policing can never succeed without community participation. And that's why, if people have rejected government, hate government, there is no way you are going to police. It's a joke. And that's how, those who don't know how a government can be defeated, this response itself shows you how a government can be defeated.
The response?
Yes, because now they fear the people. They cannot, so they must gather to protect themselves.
Okay.
So that they have enough firepower.
Concentrated in one place.
So the whole idea is no longer, community policing, because if people were part of the police, you see, the police actually should be the population. It should be the police. Not the uniformed ones should be coordinating the people's police. Everybody should be a police person.
Okay.
Ideally. And that's why everybody has powers of arrest. Every citizen can arrest. So the concept of policing should be that the people are the bottom police infrastructure. And you, the trained, uniformed or non-uniformed police, you are coordinating this infrastructure. Okay. Now, once the two are detached, as is the case now, once the people see you, the uniformed, as enemies, and you too see them as likely enemies, indeed as threats to you, then you no longer have a police system. Absolutely none. And that's why, so now they are retreating. They are retreating from the population, which they think is a threat. And if you retreat, then we have even more space to organize. We have more space to organize, and we can even attack the bigger one if we want.
We are concentrating forces.
Yes, and we can attack we can also concentrate in the villages where you are not. And that's how, you see, even guerrilla warfare, that's how it happens. because guerrilla warfare depends on popular support. So you have no intelligence. You don't know what is going on in the village. And you cannot get it because the population is against you. So you have no way of knowing. And that's how these people who were attacking police stations would come all the way to the police station, even tell the neighbors to
close their shops.
Close their shops. You know, we are going to be sorting out something here. So this, what the response the appropriate response does not come in the way of how they deploy their guns and how they deploy their policemen. This is a political problem. No guns will solve a political problem. Absolutely no way. No amount of guns can solve a political problem. And this is not just limited to Uganda here. It is everywhere. This is what, the other time we were talking about Congo.
Yes, yes.
And I was telling you, you know, it does not help taking Kenya forces, Tanzania forces, I don't know which forces, that you are going to solve the problems of Congo. Those forces will not solve any problem in Congo because the problem of Congo is a political problem. And you need a political solution. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Our viewers, we want to open up the lines. You can join this discussion by sending in your comment and we shall be reading it out. We also want you to call in and speak to us here in the studio. You can call on 0789 017 145. Again, 0789 017 145. You can also call on 0759 132 310. 0759 132 310. You can call in and ask any question. Doctor is here and he will be responding to those questions. Doctor, there are a lot of comments here in line with the meeting that you people had in Kenya, the function that was in Kenya. The human rights status in our country. There are a lot of people that were paraded in Kenya. People are wondering why would this event take place in Kenya? But first of all, we would like us to get us feel this real event since we have you now.
Yeah, so this event that was in Kenya was mainly structured around what happened in 2020 in November, 2 years ago, when there were riots in Kampala and when gunmen, uniformed and non-uniformed, descended on the streets and wantonly shot and killed many people, and that there has never been any attempt even to have accountability for what happened. So that those who killed when they shouldn't have killed are brought to court. So that there is a formal, public, open investigation and results are published and that there is accountability. Those who have participated in it, that they are sanctioned. That has never happened. And in spite of that, hundreds of people were arrested. They are still incarcerated. Many ostensibly under trial in military courts, all of which defeat the system and purpose of justice. And so the need for interrogating human rights accountability in Uganda. So this was structured around just that event. And that's why it was organized in November, structured around just that event, but also to use that event to shine a torch on all the violations of human rights that have taken place and the absence of accountability. Now, being structured around November 2020, the leading initiator of this was the National Unity Platform, whose candidate's arrest sparked that riot, and indeed whose main the main thrust of arrests and terror has been focused on those supporters. So the National Unity Platform is the one that then sought the support of Kenya Human Rights Commission.
Kenya Human Rights Commission.
Yes.
It's very important to note that.
Structure this conference.
Okay.
So that, and to structure the conference as an international conference to interrogate accountability on human rights of Uganda. So it was international.
Okay.
It was hosted in Kenya by the Kenya Human Rights Commission to interrogate human rights accountability in Uganda, but with a focus on what happened in November 2020.
Okay.
Now, so your question was, why Kenya?
Why Kenya? Why Kenya Human Rights?
Yeah, now, first of all, I'm sure everybody is aware of how very difficult it is to hold a conference here of any kind, let alone one which is going to interrogate the government about such rights. Even ordinary meetings have been dispersed to discuss party matters, to discuss, so the absence of rights to hold such conferences here, I think must have motivated the initiators, whom, as I have said, is a National Unity Platform. So the real motivations would be talked to by them. But, this is what I believe was key in motivating that arrangement.
Okay.
That it is difficult to hold such a conference here. Because even much less, controversial areas of just having party members, party supporters sit has been made impossible here. But secondly, the issue of human rights is not a Ugandan issue. Even if the human rights talked about are in Uganda, the abuses are in Uganda, it's not a Ugandan issue.
Sure.
It's a global question.
I thought this is our issue. Kenya should not be seen.
Not human rights. So human rights, that's why you say human rights are universal.
Okay.
So if you kill somebody in China, I am concerned. act with impunity and kill Chinese, I must be concerned, because we are a human population. And that's why they call these human rights, not Ugandans' rights, human.
Right.
So they affect every human being.
Okay.
You who is governing Uganda, you are governing Uganda and ensuring the rights of Ugandans on behalf of everybody else. Your mandate is being looked at by everybody else to ensure the rights of the human beings here. And so, it is perfectly in order for any part of the world to organize a conference to focus on the rights of Ugandans. Whether it's China, whether it's Korea, whether it's America, whether it's Russia, anybody can organize a conference to focus on why this is happening.
Okay.
It's like you saw the Nuremberg trials, you know, after the war. Doesn't matter where you are, that, you know, the court would hunt you down and try you and so on. So this is, so abusers of rights here must know that the world has a right to pursue them. It's not just say this is my, you know, there was a time in 1977, the Archbishop of Uganda was, together with some 2 ministers, were killed here. That was during Idi Amin's time. And the whole world, you know, exploded into demanding and condemning and, you know, how, especially the Archbishop, is the one who captured the world. And Amin said, but wait a moment. You Americans, you are in Vietnam, you are killing people there, you know. You British, you are in Northern Ireland, you are killing people there. So what's wrong with me if I also kill one? if one dies in Uganda, why is it? And he was right. He was right. You know, that well, he wasn't right that people should be concerned, but he was right that even where those abuses are taking place, he himself should have been condemning them and concerned about what is. So rights have no borders. And Kenya Human Rights is set up indeed for that, to check on rights of human beings wherever they are being abused. Of course, they are focused on Kenya, but wherever they are being abused, that should be the same thing of Uganda Human Rights Commission.
What are they doing?
So the fact that Uganda Human Rights Commission up to now, in spite of the gross, open, public abuses of rights that the Uganda Human Rights Commission is missing in action, itself should be the one that should organize such conferences and interrogate on behalf of the people. But it's a captured commission. It can't do it. This is why all institutions here are captured. Uganda Human Rights Commission is absolutely useless. I have taken cases there on many occasions, filed them properly. Nothing has ever come out.
Never got a report?
On one occasion, they themselves moved themselves because I had given up going to them. When I was, barricaded at home after 2016 election,
Yes.
I couldn't move out. Of course, there was a lot of media activity showing what was going on. International diplomats of the European Union came to see what was happening. I think they felt ashamed, so they also came and visited me and said, we have come to check on what is going on. We want to follow up this matter, and this is not. So I said, okay, you have. Thank you for coming. You have seen what is going on. Now it is in your hands. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
So that is why I think the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and we commend them for the action they took. So there are two commissions in Nairobi. There is the Kenya Human Rights Commission. There is also the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. The Kenya National Human Rights Commission is government.
Okay.
The Kenya Human Rights Commission is non-government. But in this case, both were there.
Both were party to this event.
Yes, and addressed the conference and so on and so forth. So, the idea, apart from talking about what is going on here, was also to give the victims of these abuses a platform in a place again where they are not directly threatened as they come or move out. Of course, we suspect they may.
Will they be safe when they come?
That we are following, we are going to see. Yeah. But now, they are also visible by the whole world.
International community.
Yes.
All their eyes are on them now.
Yes. So they are now being followed to see what is going to happen to them. So, but the idea was indeed to create a platform where victims can give testimonies direct from the victim. Not some people talking about what is going on, but victims themselves talking about what has gone on. And I have seen in the media, first of all, an attempt at dismissing, these as being fake, as that these were accident victims or what. But these are on camera. Their words have been recorded. You can challenge them. That's the whole idea. It's not done in secret. It's done transparently. I've also seen some people trying to say, this was Noop. The others, Besigye, Muntu, they have distanced themselves. That's absolute rubbish. Because the victims actually that gave testimonies, quite a number of them were FDC victims. And who gave testimonies as FDC, not as Noop. So this was, although the initiative was started by National Unity Platform, as I have said, it was not a National Unity Platform conference. It was a Uganda Human Rights Accountability Conference, and which included all of us here, and that's how we all went. JEMA, UPC, FDC, DP, all the parties were there. And were indeed demonstrating solidarity, all of us, to demand accountability of Uganda's abusers of human rights. And I think it was a powerful platform of demonstration of the terrible conditions in which those who have different views from those of the regime here go through.
Doctor, which recommendations are we coming out with from this conference, and how are we helping the victims to achieve justice?
So, all these were indeed very useful outcomes. One, that we need to coordinate more closely, all of us, both in challenging the situation that causes these abuses,
yes,
and ending it, because that is the final remedy to end this abuse, but also to coordinate closely in mitigating, in reducing and managing the consequences of the actions of those who challenge the regime, which is, the incarceration, that we should have legal teams that are organized, that follow up on all these cases, that pursue the abusers in their individual capacity and so on, that we should jointly look at how to manage the victims, to get them counseling, to get them health care, to get them, and so on. But also to mobilize international support.
Okay.
Get the international community to sanction also. Sanction the abusers. Like the Magnitsky Act, the act that foreign governments can use to sanction abusers here, that this should be widened, and we should give them all the information that they need to pursue individuals. Like you saw them pursue Kanduho.
Yes.
So the Kanduhos of this,
the November 2020,
and others, and both in the past and in the future, that we should pursue them, so that the whole world isolates them and sanctions them. So all these are outcomes of that conference. I think they are important outcomes. This is only a beginning. Okay. We shall continue, as we indeed indicated. We shall, having seen how such can be done, we will then bring it here.
Okay.
And use it to again attract international focus and fight with those who try to stop it here and so on. So the struggle is building.
Doctor, there are some Ugandans who are beginning to have a feeling that the opposition now seems to get into hotels these days, more of hotels, meetings here and there. They're not feeling you out in the field, on the streets.
I think that is...
they were used to you.
Yes, that is a justified concern. But like I have pointed out, you see, organizing is extremely important for the outcomes of the actions that you take subsequently. If you go into action when you are not sufficiently organized, the impact is not as big. Even in war, the actual battles of exchanging fire last a short time.
And they are the final.
But what the preparation before that battle is a determinant on the outcome of that battle. So it's important to train, even if it is for a year.
Okay.
You are in training, exercising, doing mock attacks to see how they come out. so that when the actual thing happens, you are as prepared as it is possible. Okay. Now, our actions here have been affected by a lack of coordination by all the oppressed. So we are on the streets waking up people, others are not, are doing something else. The impact won't be as big. Okay. So that's why we have stepped back a little to organize ourselves a little more. And if that is seen as working in a hotel or whatever, it doesn't matter for me. Wherever we work, we shall work, provided that once the engagement is there, it is a determinant engagement. It is a potent engagement. And let nobody be in doubt. Okay. This matter will be resolved and will be resolved by Ugandans. Because there is also an element of people thinking that foreigners will solve this problem for us. They can help us, but they cannot replace us. We are the ones to solve this problem. Okay. It is primarily our problem. Though it affects them, but it is primarily our problem. It affects us most, and we must confront it ourselves. Okay. But it will be much easier if it is known by everybody and supported by everybody.
Doctor, there is Antonio Santos. He says, can opposition in Uganda there use the same opportunity that they used in Kenya to sensitize the young people that violence is not a way of solving society problems? Says youth should take this as a lesson and desist from being used by egocentric politicians who milk the situation at the expense of their naivety. As Martin Luther once said, nothing good ever comes of violence. Secondly, opposition leaders should rise above mere cheap popularity of playing to the gallery and posing for photos with victims of their own hooliganism. That is Antonio Santos. Doctor, we shall take, I need you to respond to him and then...
You know, Antonio and the likes of Antonio amaze me because they are actually voices from the government. Say, you know, tell young people to avoid violence. But who is the violent here? First of all, NRM itself is built on violence. It came into government using violence. This is the first, you know, so if it had not used violence, Mr. Museveni would not be in office, NRM would not be in office. Okay. So it's a creature of violence. Secondly, its ideology, its mobilization is a mobilization of violence. Because they have been saying, Museveni especially has been saying, we came through the furnace. A piece of paper cannot remove us. In other words, telling young people that if you want to have your say, you must become violent. So the mobilizers of violence is the regime. It's the mobilizer number one, mobilizer of violence. But then when violence starts, then they say, please tell people not to be violent. But who has been mobilizing and socializing the country around violence? It is the criminals in the government. You know, and so, you know, but you have, you know, people like that Antonio, I don't know what he does, who says that our work now, the work of those who want change, should concentrate on telling the people not to, while they use violence to, you know, abuse the population. Because what we have been talking about, all these human rights abuses, you should see all the pictures of people, how they are grabbed and put into those drones. The kind of violence that is used, the kind of violence they use on those who are detained. People are already detained, they are even handcuffed, but they are beaten to pulp. You saw Kakwenza emerging out of somebody they picked from his home. You saw him emerging out of those torture chambers and how he looked and how his body looked. So, if people then want to defend themselves against that and they use violence, the persons to blame are those who start the violence. You can, and so if there are people, if we had any effort and capacity to talk about violence, we should talk it to the root of violence, which is the junta. And that's why we call it a junta. A junta is a group of people that uses force to take and maintain power. The junta. So yes, violence will not stop unless the junta and its guns have been subordinated, have been shown that people who are unarmed are stronger than them. So yes, our ideology has been very, very clear that we want it's non-violence to defeat the violent and subordinate them. That is going on. And so I believe that we shall be really maintaining our own ideology. It's not a new ideology. We are not looking for anything new. We are simply pursuing our non-violent struggle. But let nobody think that they can become violent and then use us as mobilizers for them not to be responsible.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you, our viewers. Thank you, Doctor, for the wonderful time that you have given us even this Saturday. Doctor, I want us to say bye-bye to our viewers, but as you are doing that, World Cup is beginning tomorrow. We also want to pick your prediction, perhaps, what will be the best team.
I am a very poor predictor, especially in situations where I am biased.
Okay.
As usual, my first support will go to the African teams to fight to the extent that we can. However, I'm realistic enough not to expect that we shall come back with the cup from Doha. And if the African teams are out, my usual fallback is Brazil. I hope that they will cheer them on if they are still there to see. But yes, you know, as we, I think, take the break from this week's program, once again, really, I have to revert back to the issue of the great loss that we have suffered and to ask all Ugandans to use the example of Dr. Kawanga and his entire life of struggle and integrity and perseverance to rededicate ourselves to completing what he has spent his entire life fighting for: democracy, human rights, the rule of law, and all the tenets on which peaceful, stable countries are built. So, you know, I condole the family, the friends, the relatives, and and the country, and hope that, we shall lay him to rest with the full dignity that he deserves.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you once again. Thank you to all our viewers. Let us meet again next time. I remain your host, Nixon Segawa.
Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.